Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to try to uncover all the different layers of meaning behind the name Sarah.
Okay.
And we've got some really interesting sources lined up from ancient texts and numerology
Yes.
and pop culture.
Love it.
By the end, you'll know not only what Sarah means, but also the history behind it and
The personality trait.
the personality traits.
Yes.
Even spiritual significance that it holds.
It's really exciting.
So
Where do we start?
let's start with the basics.
Okay.
The meaning,
All right.
Sarah, means princess or noblewoman in Hebrew.
Wow. Already sounds pretty
It says very
biblical.
regal, doesn't it?
Okay.
Like we're stepping into a royal story.
Right. And when we think about the historical context, that sense of nobility becomes even more powerful
Okay.
because we're talking about a figure who is so important in the Old Testament, Sarah, the wife of Abraham
Oh, wow.
and mother of Isaac.
So we're talking about a name that's part of Jewish,
Yes.
Christian, and Muslim traditions. That's a pretty amazing legacy.
It really is. And, her story is anything but ordinary.
Okay.
It's a real transformation story.
Okay.
She was initially named Sarai, but God changed her name to Sarah to symbolize her elevated status and a future of incredible possibilities.
That's interesting. The name change.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple swap.
Yeah.
It's a really important moment in her life.
Yes. A transition, stepping into her power.
Yeah.
What unfolds is a story of resilience, faith, and overcoming these really difficult challenges.
I'm already interested. Tell me more about these challenges.
Well, she initially struggled with infertility,
Oh, wow.
yet she went on to become the mother of nations.
Wow.
A key figure in this huge lineage.
That's powerful. That's defying limitations and the power of hope.
Absolutely. And it doesn't end there.
Really?
She's also revered in Islam,
Oh, wow.
which shows how far-reaching her influence is.
So we're talking about a name that goes beyond any one religion or time period. Wow. It's crazy to think that a name from ancient times could be so relevant for us today.
Yeah.
But let's get to the important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean for all the Sarahs living today?
Right.
Does the name actually shape their personalities?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
While we can't say someone is destined for greatness just because of their name,
Right.
there are certain qualities associated with Sarah that seem to resonate through time.
Okay, so our sources point to strength, grace, calmness,
Mm-hmm.
patience as key traits.
Yes, but there's also this underlying current of wisdom.
Yeah.
A nurturing spirit and deep empathy.
It's a very interesting mix.
Right.
Gentleness
Right.
and inner strength.
Right. And if we consider the biblical Sarah's experiences facing down all that social pressure,
Yeah.
dealing with complicated relationships and playing such a crucial role in history,
Mm-hmm.
those traits make a lot of sense.
So it's almost like the challenges that she faced imprinted themselves on the name itself,
It's a good way to put it.
leading to these associations of resilience and determination.
The name Sarah has absorbed all of that
Wow.
and is carrying that legacy of strength and wisdom for everyone with the name.
Okay, so now I'm really curious about how that legacy shows up today.
Okay.
So in pop culture,
Mhm.
are there any iconic Sarahs who kind of show these qualities?
Oh, absolutely. Tons.
Okay.
But there are two that really stand out to me.
Tell me who they are.
Okay, so first we have Sarah Crew from A Little Princess.
Okay, I know that one.
She faces so much adversity, but with incredible grace
Yeah.
and inner strength, and she just reminds us about the power of compassion.
Yeah, she's definitely a character who has those core Sarah traits.
Yes.
Okay, so who's the second one?
This one might surprise you. Think Labyrinth with a young Sarah
Okay.
facing off against David Bowie,
Yeah.
navigating that crazy maze with all the challenges.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
Sarah shows courage,
Yeah.
quick
Yeah.
thinking, and she's very determined.
Exactly. She doesn't back down.
It's interesting how both of those Sarahs, even though they have very different stories,
Yeah.
still show those core elements of strength and resilience.
It's different ways of showing the same powerful energy.
So is there anything else about Sarah that might surprise our listener?
There is. And it has to do with something you might not expect. Numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Now you've got me interested. Tell me more.
Okay, so in numerology, Sarah is associated with the number 7.
Okay.
We get there by giving each letter in the name a numerical value,
Mm-hmm.
and we add them all up.
Yeah.
And it gives us these cool insights into the personality traits that go with the name.
Okay, but what's so special about the number 7?
Well, the number 7 is often linked to introspection,
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, and a desire for truth and knowledge.
Okay.
It's all about wanting a deeper understanding of the world and yourself.
Wait a minute. Those qualities line up perfectly with the Sarahs we've been talking about.
I know, right?
They're introspective, resilient, and they have a strong moral compass.
It's like the numerology is confirming everything we've found so far.
This is already so much more than just learning about a name.
I know.
It feels like we're finding these hidden connections.
Right.
And like revealing this deeper meaning behind something that we kind of take for granted.
And we're just getting started.
Oh, wow.
There's so much more to learn as we keep going with our deep dive into Sarah. Welcome back to our deep dive into Sarah.
So as we've been talking, one thing keeps coming to my mind.
Okay.
Like, we've talked about the biblical Sarah and seen those same traits in pop culture. And even the numerology seems to fit.
Right.
But is it possible that we're just seeing what we want to see?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It leads us to a really interesting part of names.
Okay.
Like how they create certain expectations.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
How do names create these expectations?
So think about it. When you hear the name Sarah,
Yeah.
what comes to mind right away?
Yeah, I guess I picture someone who's kind and intelligent, maybe a little reserved, but with some inner strength.
Exactly. And those associations aren't just random.
Right.
They come from all the things we've been talking about, the stories we've heard, people we've met, and the cultural and historical things connected to the name.
So even if I've never met a Sarah before, I already have an idea of what she might be like.
Yeah, in a way, of course, every Sarah is unique.
Right.
But the name has a certain weight to it.
Yeah.
Like expectations that have been building for centuries.
Wow. That makes you realize how powerful a name can be.
For sure.
It's not just a label. It's like a story waiting to be told.
And that story can affect how we see ourselves and others.
I'm really rethinking everything I thought I knew about names.
It's interesting, isn't it?
This isn't just a fun fact-finding thing. We're looking at how these layers of meaning change how we see the world.
And speaking of those layers, there's another part of Sarah we haven't talked about.
Okay.
It's spiritual significance.
Now we're getting into some tricky stuff. Talking about faith and beliefs can be sensitive.
Yeah, it is. But remember, we're just analyzing here, exploring how Sarah has been seen in different spiritual traditions.
Right. We've talked about how important she is in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But where else does the name hold spiritual weight?
That's a great question. It takes us to some really cool concepts.
Okay.
In some mystical traditions, Sarah represents feminine wisdom and spiritual strength.
Archetype. That's a new one. Can you explain that?
Sure. Think about the hero's journey in stories.
Yeah.
The hero goes through trials and becomes transformed.
Yeah.
That's an archetype, a universal pattern that shows up in different cultures and times.
So you're saying Sarah represents an archetype?
Yes. Like a blueprint for a certain kind of feminine energy.
Okay, I see.
It's about intuition nurturing and a strong connection to the divine.
That makes sense when you think about the biblical.
Yes.
Sarah facing infertility, the journey to a new land, becoming the mother of nations.
Exactly. We're going beyond the historical figure and finding something more universal.
It's amazing how history, pop culture, and spirituality all come together to give such a deep understanding of one name.
And the great thing about archetypes is that they let us connect with those deeper meanings.
So even if you're not religious, you can still see the power of Sarah as feminine wisdom and strength.
Totally. It's about recognizing the universal qualities of the name and how they can inspire us.
This is incredible. We started with a simple name.
Right?
And we've explored history, pop culture, spirituality, and even the idea of identity.
It's a lot to take in.
What else is there?
Oh, there's still more. Come back for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll switch from the name itself to the people who have it, the real-life Sarahs who are shaping what the name means today.
Welcome back to our deep dive on the name Sarah. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. We've gone from ancient times to pop culture and even spirituality.
And now I want to bring it all together. We've talked about the biblical Sarah and archetypes and famous Sarahs. But what about all the everyday Sarahs out there? The ones living their lives right now.
That's what I find so fascinating. Every Sarah is carrying this history, but they're also adding to it with their own experiences.
So it's not just the name shaping the person shapes the name too.
Exactly. It's a two-way street. Think of all the Sarahs we've mentioned. The actresses, the musicians, the ones who changed history. They've all added their own stories to Sarah.
And the ones we haven't mentioned too, the ones we see every day.
Absolutely. They're all part of it.
This makes me think about how names can connect us to something bigger.
Yeah, it's like we're all woven together by these shared stories.
So being named Sarah isn't just about having a name. It's being part of this living legacy.
Exactly. You're carrying a torch that's been passed down, but you also add your own spark.
I love that analogy. After all this, I really appreciate the name Sarah and everyone who has it.
That's the great thing about exploring. You see things in a new way and appreciate them more.
We started with a simple name
I know.
and found a whole world of history, culture, and personal meaning.
And what's cool is that this is true for every name. They all have a story waiting to be discovered.
So whether you're a Sarah or not, think about the power and meaning of the names you hear every day.
They all have hidden depths and connections to the past, present, and future.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Sarah.